The Bureau of Labor Statistics is projecting 340,000 data center positions to go unfilled just this year. Everyone thinks the AI gold rush is just about software engineers, but in reality, data centers are still fighting to hire the very people who keep the lights on, the cooling stable, and the racks alive. Uptime Institute claims that the staffing problem is growing and not shrinking. And while nobody's explaining just how to get into this field, I want to give you the way in which, if you're looking to break in, you can explore to heighten your chances. I work in one of these facilities, so let's talk about what's real and how you actually can get in. So exactly what makes now such a good time? US data center employment went from about 300,000 in 2016 to well over 500,000 by the end of 2023. That's a 64% jump driven by cloud migration and the early stages of AI development. And it really hasn't slowed down since. By the end of 2027, the industry is projected to need close to 650,000 total positions. And that's not just technical roles. Construction, operations, facilities, all of it's expanding at the same time. Now, here's a number that actually matters though. Industry analysts project that 340,000 of those positions will go unfilled. This isn't because the company isn't hiring actively. It's because there's not enough qualified people out there to fill those qualified seats. And reports show that 65% of data center operators already find it difficult retaining and finding qualified technical staff. Now, this isn't a hiring challenge. This is a structural inability to hire and staff for the infrastructure that the internet actually runs on. The window, it's actively real. The question is if you are on the right side of it. Let's get an understanding of the different tracks within this industry. People think that data center engineer is one main role or one main department, when in reality it's actually not. There are 3 different career tracks, and applying to the wrong one is why people don't hear callbacks. Path 1 is your IT operations. Servers, storage, networking, firmware, and operating system level troubleshooting all live here. This is the side that keeps the AI compute or the compute in general alive. The roles that you can normally find within this track are network and computer system engineers, system administrators, as well as site reliability style jobs for the technicians. Now, some things to keep in mind for your operations track. They often care about servers, storage, networking, virtualization, Linux or Windows admin, ticketing, and even incident response. For your path 2 is your critical facilities engineer. For this path, you're mostly dealing with power, UPS, chillers, generators, preventative maintenance, and safety protocols. Now this side specifically pulls from electricians, HVAC, pipe fitters, diesel mechanics, or mechanics of any trade. Data center operators are still struggling to actively fill and find qualified technical staff for these roles as well. The critical facilities roles mainly care about electric distribution, UPS, generators, safety protocols, and mainly preventative maintenance. For your path 3 is your design, commissioning, and project delivery track. Now these are the people who are actively planning, building, and testing the facility before ever turning it over to operations. This is why data center engineer can mean very different things depending on the company. For your design and your commissioning roles, they often care about engineering knowledge, project coordination, testing, documentation, and direct mission critical experience, or MEP. The reason that the data center engineer distinction actually matters is because on LinkedIn and Indeed, the job titles, they look very similar. Data center technician or data center engineer can mean either track depending on the employer or the company. If you apply without knowing which one you're targeting, then your resume just reads as generic and oftentimes just gets skipped. So what are the hiring managers actually looking for? Most job postings in this field look like a wall of requirements. People often read that list and count how many boxes that they actually check off, and sometimes talk themselves out of applying. That's actually a mistake. Data center operators have stopped waiting for the perfect candidates. They're looking for people who are willing to learn. First, you need to understand exactly what uptime means. In a data center, downtime isn't just a convenience. It's a crisis with financial and contractual consequences. If you've worked anywhere with critical systems that always have to be online, then that experience directly translates. Think of your hospitals, your emergency services, and things that need to be running 24/7. Second, you need to be able to stay calm while something is actively breaking. These facilities, they run 24/7, and incidents, they don't wait for business hours. So hiring managers aren't just evaluating your technical skills. They're evaluating if you're the kind of person that works well under pressure or if you'll just make it worse. And finally, you need to understand that there's just more background scrutiny. These buildings run serious background checks, and government contract sites are even more thorough. So make sure that before you apply, there's nothing disqualifying inside of your background, and be upfront about anything rather than hoping they don't find out. Now, how do you actually get in the door? Know which employer type you're targeting because it's going to determine your whole plan. Not all data centers are the same, and the pay difference between different employers can be massive. Here's how you can understand it. Now, first, you have your staffing agencies and contractors. This is the lowest paying entry point, but it's also the most accessible foot in the door. You get placed on a contract at a facility, you prove yourself, and get flipped to full-time. Now, the trade-off here is lower pay and less stability and benefits while you're contracting. Next, you have your co-location providers. Equinix, Digital Realty, and CyrusOne. These co-location providers often offer mid-tier pay, but are more stable and good for building a track record. Next, you have your hyperscalers. AWS, Meta, Google, Microsoft, Oracle. Hyperscalers offer top-of-the-market pay, but they're also the most competitive to also get into. Regardless, these hyperscalers are building the most aggressively right now and actively need people to work in those data centers. Use contract roles as your actual entry point. This is actually how a large percentage of hyperscale employees got their badge, including myself. The staffing firms filling these data center positions are always under constant pressure. They need bodies with any relevant aptitude. So, what does that mean for you? If you can get in on a contract and execute well, then you'll be in the pool for conversion. To help you, free training programs exist, but almost nobody's using them. Microsoft's Data Center Academy, Google's Data Center Academy, and AWS's Accelerated Workforce Program were all there for people with zero prior data center experience. These training programs are free, and they're run by the same companies who are desperately trying to fill their active roles. If you are somebody who has no experience at all, then this should be your first move, but not spending money on certs. You don't need a 4-year degree for most of these roles, but you do need something that signals that you're serious. So here's how to think about it. If you want to obtain some baseline certifications for your IT operations track, I would look into CompTIA's A+, or Network Plus. This would then act as your baseline for your credibility on a resume screener. If you're pursuing the critical facilities engineers track, then certifications can give you a strong advantage, especially if you're transitioning from another trade. Start with OSHA 10 or OSHA 30 if you don't already have it. Now, these are often expected and show that you understand basic job site safety. Now, if you're somebody with an HVAC background, then the EPA 608 is highly relevant to you and something that I would start with if I was in your position. Any electrical licenses or certifications are extremely valuable within this field, so before anything, make sure that those are front and center on your resume. Data centers rely heavily on electrical infrastructure, and that experience can set you apart very quickly. The key takeaway is that you don't necessarily need every certification to get started, but having safety training and a technical foundation will significantly improve your chances in the critical facilities track. For your design and your commissioning roles, these are normally your roles with degree requirements in IT or engineering related studies. Normally, your 4-year bachelor's degree graduate lives here, but not all the time. You can also find ways to promote through experience and being able to gain valuable certifications. Now, here's what I would avoid doing entirely. Spending anywhere from $2,000 to $3,000 on a specialized data center certification before you even have a single role under your belt. Get in the door, and once you're in, your employer will often fund your next certification because they often need you to have it. In terms of pay for these roles, where you work matters more than anything else. For your IT operations track, entry-level roles often start in the mid-50s to low 80,000s annually, while more experienced technicians and engineers can move anywhere from the 80 to the mid-100,000s, with some of the higher-end roles pushing way beyond that in major markets. Now, for your critical facilities track, your base pay is normally between the ranges of 70 to the high 90s for the entry-level technician roles. And for experienced engineers in hyperscale or high-cost environments, they can see high 6 figures annually, especially when you include on-call, overtime, and shift premiums. Shift premiums are ways in which you can increase your base pay. Night shift typically pays 10 to 15% more, and overtime adds another 15 to 30% to your base pay. Data centers run around the clock. If you're willing to work nights, then you're gonna typically earn more than somebody who works days with the same exact title. Now, being straightforward, this job isn't for everyone. I'd rather tell you that now than you hate this job in 6 months. You will work weird shifts. Could be weekends, a 2 to 11 p.m. shift, or could be nights if you decide to go that route, or even a federal holiday. Data centers, like we talked about, don't close, and somebody always has to be there. If you are somebody who needs a fixed 9 to 5 structure, data centers have that structure in place, but you need to understand that there are a multitude of shift types and positions, and that's the real trade-off you need to factor in before you apply. The work is high stakes, but it's often routine. Most of your day is preventative maintenance, monitoring, documentation, and process. The infrastructure is designed just not to fail, but when it does fail, it's fast, high pressure, and consequential. Uptime is your only goal, no matter the department or position that you are in. If everything is working fine, then you and your team will be at peace. The last point that I want to touch on is that you'll be in a secure and controlled environment. Badge in, badge out, strict security protocols, cameras throughout, and in some places, especially those with government contracts, you have clearance requirements. If that environment sounds uncomfortable to you, then you need to take that seriously before you apply, because ultimately, you'll have more eyes on you throughout your day. If you're somebody who's serious about this, here's exactly what to do this week. First, I would go to Google, search Microsoft's Data Center Academy or AWS's Accelerator Workforce Program. Apply there, it's free, and there's really no reason not to. Then, I would search LinkedIn for my specific city, followed by the keywords data center staffing, and then message 5 recruiters, letting them know exactly what I'm looking for and the types of opportunities I want. A short, brief message about your background and what type of roles you're looking for is all they need. Now you know the shortage is real, the demand is real. Now the question is if you are going to be one of those 340,000 empty seats or the person actually filling one. If you're somebody who doesn't know exactly which track you're best suited for, then go ahead and drop your background in the comments and I'll help you figure out exactly which track works for you. As always, subscribe and like to see more of this content.